left here.
Flag on the that Canadian flag.
Is it? I can't see up that far. Oh, there's one there. Right? There's a few of them, yeah. I'll certainly pick them up anyway. Only got a spit.
I think the sign, the actual welcome to Coningsby sign was ejecting Canadian flags.
All along the fence there, aren't they? Along the bushes.
T311.
Alright.
I've been here before, Robert.
Yes.
Yeah. Can't remember.
Might be something on, yeah, might be on the sign, Steve, on the right here as we go by.
Yeah. Can't see this. It's behind me though, isn't it?
That's it.
Yeah. We just came past the car park.
Oh yeah, I remember a bit now.
Oh yeah, we're teaching a lesson. Yeah, because the Lancaster, just briefly the numbers, 7,377 Lancasters were built for the Second World War, and 430 of those were built in Canada. They were known as Mark 10s to separate them from the British built. Most of the British ones would be with some Mark 3s, although there have been Mark 1s and Mark 2s. They carried a crew of 7 young men of 18, 19 years old, with an old man as a pilot. No, I mean a guy of 21, 22, 23, 24, that sort of thing. But it was in the RAF of the Second World War, that was an old man. He would sit at the front of the pilot. He would be aided by a flight engineer. Behind them a navigator, a radio operator, bomb aimer at the front, gunner mid-upper, and then the rear gunner. They had to do, well, let me start at the beginning. Crews were formed in a very strange way, I find, but this is personal. When you wanted to form a squadron, which would be 20-ish aeroplanes, you would get the appropriate number of trained men you needed, pilots, navigators, etc. They were put into a room, big room, with some beer, and said, get on with it. Knock on the door when you're ready, a bit like jury service, you know, when you're finished, knock on the door. And they'd go around chatting to each other and gradually meld together in 7-man crews, one of each type. I sometimes wonder what happened to the poor blokes who nobody liked and left over at the end, but that's another problem. Anyway, once that crew was formed, they were then trained, they were sent to a squadron and trained properly now as a team together, and then they had to do 30 bombing missions. And I mean bombing. If they went all the way to Germany and couldn't bomb because of a technical fault, and they brought a wounded or a dead man home, it didn't count, nothing counted. Only dropping bombs counted, so they had to do it again. They usually operated a little scorecard system themselves, which was painting bombs on the sides. completely did 35 bombing missions and 35 bombs. If they'd have done a bombing mission to Italy, as we did, it wouldn't have been a bomb at all because they used to pay ice cream cones for it.
Yes.
That's what they did. And after 30 missions you could go off and become an instructor or transfer or something. Some volunteered actually to come back additionally, but they were limited to 20 more, maximum 50 altogether. But that would, if you did 50 bombing missions, you were within 5% of the people that started. Sorry. I thought you were going to... Yeah, we're beginning to get the odd noise, I know. That's what comes of a working hangar. Yeah. Anyway, that was it. Rolls-Royce Merlin engines again, of course, appearing, but 4 this time. On the Canadian one, of course, they are built by Packard in the States. Packard Motor Company, but under licence. Simple, you're not going to ship engines all the way to Canada. Mid-range engines, because on a bomber you want reliability, not performance. So, because you're going to build in, you see, you'll be looking at a 8.5 hour round flight, which is a long time to keep engines running. Although if you were Lancaster did it over the Atlantic a few weeks ago. They were lucky because the engine thing could have happened earlier. The bomb bay doors are hanging open there, the black flaps, 2 black flaps. They always open them when they're on the ground because they're hydraulically operated. And if they've got them up and they want to do some work, it means either they've got to start the engines to get hydraulics to lower them, or wind the handle, which takes forever. So they leave them down in readiness and then put them up as soon as they get out. But in that bomb bay, which is just one great big compartment, it's 35 foot long, about 6 foot wide and about 4 foot high. Bomb clips on the top of it to clip the bombs, and you can get a whole mishmash of bombs, which you did. You tuned your bomb load in weight and type of bomb to suit the distance to the target and the type of target. You could have big high explosives, lots of little ones, incendiary bombs, mixed, whatever. Yes, well in fact, yeah. The bomb boy doors disappeared for 617 Squadron, Dambusters, for the Dambusters bomb first, and then for the Tall Boy, and then for the Grand Slap. But the petrol, I mean, talk about 90 gallons on the Spitfire. I mean, on this, you could have 2,200 gallons. 3 tanks along each wing. But of course, the further you go in with your bombs, you've got to have more petrol, which means less bombs. You've got to balance the weight. The factory, the ex-works factory weight of a Lancaster is 16 tons in round numbers. The takeoff weight on a bombing mission in World War II would be 32 or 33 tons. You double the weight with your bombs, your petrol, your men, and your ammunition.
So when we hear these take off when events, it's nothing to...
You're not getting that long. No, it would take, because you did not want to fly from Lincolnshire like that to Germany, because that distance, height above the Dutch coast or the French coast isn't enough.
Yeah.
You would take off from Lincolnshire and circle up. When you got to 20,000 feet, you then would formate and go. It would take a fully loaded Lancaster up to 45 minutes to get up to height. Really grind it up. And a bomber stream, when you're thinking of the hundreds of bombers, you know, the 600-700 bombers, you're talking about bombers which are 70-75 miles from the first one to the last one.
Yes.
Probably 10 miles across and several thousand feet in height. We did have people in Lancasters bombing their mates below. I mean, you tried to fly, you know, this, but if you start weaving and taking corkscrew for avoiding night fighters, you could get in the bombing of another one. It's all exciting stuff. Right. Tubes are on the end of the wing. They are signal lights, coloured lights that only shine backwards. And they what how the wing leader can send messages to his other via code, so you don't have to transmit by radio. Up at the back and front, but low at the side. As the gunner's shooting, he's rotating his turret chasing the enemy fighter. As he moves towards the front of the airplane, his guns are pushed upwards. So he carries on shooting at nothing. So it's a crude way of stopping him shooting the pilot and the tank. On the Canadian one, it's got different guns. It's got 20 mm cannon, but it's got a mechanism, the interrupter mechanism built into the gun, so the bullets stop firing while they cross the back, which is the way we had it in the First World War with the pellet gun. Anyway, we get several looks here. We'll move on and then go around the back of the place. I always think that's the most impressive one. But here you can see the decor of this one. It's Andy, pilot officer Hangar Mynarski, who's the Canadian this is the war. These are the I'll tell you the story. So they painted it across. So it's the Mynarski Lancaster, not VeRA. We don't know who invented VeRA, but the Canadians do not like it. It's a memorial. It's not a joke. And the VeRA only succumbs from the fact its registration. Well, of Mynarski's Lancaster, a 419 squadron called VeRA. They've slipped an E in. But because it only slipped on one side, because they turn it around, and because there's the splitting of the number, they don't read them. But it's tough. And now, unfortunately, press are now calling that Thunder.
Yeah.
Come and see VeRA and Thunder.
This was only supposed to be interim, wasn't it? This was only for the den buses. So is it going to be changed when they do the service? Because it goes off for its service
well,
at the end
that's
of
the
the
question.
season.
I'm not sure whether they're going to bother with next year.
Because I know they said the other day they'd only got 24 hours something left of flying time left. It was on the internet the other day.
That's right. It's getting, well, they only have 100 hours a year.
Yeah.
Flying.
I suppose when you add it all up, it doesn't seem
very well to get it.
Exactly.
Anyway, there you go. That's the Mynarski. Okay, we can go and look at it from side view for
57-foot side drive.
just as we pass by, these are two engines I mentioned, the Griffin engine and the Merlin. You can see at a glance how much bigger this is. Monster. No wonder it gave the power for they can get the Spitfire moving. But 160,000 these engines were built in the Second World War, the Merlin. Say by Rolls, but also by Packard in the States. Only 8,000 of that one were built. Obviously, not only is it big, it'd be more expensive. Not with the chromium plate, of course, that was all done specially for an exhibition.
Which one was it they had the problem with? Which engine was it?
Number 4, wasn't it?
Right.
Number 4 on the other side.
The
Yeah.
other side.
The one that gave them the starting problem and the propeller
Number 2.
pitch was
Number 2.
it's number 2.
Have they worked out what the problem was with number 4? What they did find out what it was that was blew a gasket or something?
Not exactly, no. It might have been. It was internal.
Yeah.
It was oil from the oily bits into
Well, they were saying it was white smoke,
into the
so
cylinders.
it wasn't that serious or
No,
something.
that's why it came out that it smelled. Anyway, you know, I shouldn't take any chances. They've now got a BBMF engine in. I'm not sure what the plan is. Somebody told me this morning that they're going to change it before it goes back, but I don't think that'll come out. That's a bit dodgy, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, 3,000
3,800
miles
miles.
with a new engine.
I don't think it will be as lucky with the weather going back as it was.
Hey,
It was only the last 100 miles.
Prevailing winds says that, not weather. They're going to get a chance. Mind you, they can get a lift along there. Actually, I looked at that cross as much as they put it on Flight Radar 24, and I thought, it's never going to get across. There's so much traffic going the other way. All the airliners, it's the route, isn't it, to the States? From
I don't think I picked it up until it was over Scotland.
That's right.
And then it only encountered
kept
really
switching
bad
off.
weather until it on
In
that
fact, they
last...
apologised at one point on the net, on Twitter or something, saying sorry, we'll have to readjust it. So there you see, looking at the upper turret, there's no fairing around it. It makes it much cleaner.
I think it's a bit more rotary.
And there's why they call it rotary.
I'm afraid it's just something that somebody has adopted and...
So the only other difference then between the British and the Canadian, apart from that's the design change, the engines of course are built by Packard in the States, and all the instruments and electrics, the pumps and motors and various things are all made in America, or were made in America in the 40s. There was no point in shipping stuff from here, and Canada hadn't got the facility to build, so they bought from America. They, of course, had one problem with their build, and that was with the word Whitworth. Anybody engineering in you? Whitworth is the form of the nuts and bolts used on airplanes in England in the 40s, and Lancaster. So when Packard, what's this? Anyway.
They must have encountered some of those problems changing the engine over, I would have thought as well, did they?
Oh, yeah. But it was so that, and I've only learnt that last week, because somebody set me thinking, and I went on the internet and I looked at Packard, Rolls-Royce, Lancaster this. I couldn't find anything about it at all. But then I started, when I look at it the other way, I started looking at nuts and bolts, fixing, aircraft fixings. And eventually I found a website which had a paper on Whitworth, and in fact nuts and bolts in general, and a section in it explaining that Packard actually made Whitworth themselves. They set up a little sub-factory with the machinery.
Like their own standard sort of thing.
Their own Canadian-made Whitworth nuts and bolts. Which the compatibility just disappeared.
Yeah, I think that's why it took a bit longer than they planned, didn't it?
Oh yeah, they had a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Because one of them was that on the Rolls-Royce drawings of 1940 time, a lot of the dimensions for making it were 1.5 inches.
Yeah.
Not 1.5 inches, which you can easily calculate with the tolerance, but and they were in fractions. So they had to do all this conversion as well. Some of them were in decimals.
Amazing what they achieved, really.
I think Packard had a bit of skew at this old-fashioned Rolls-Royce, but boy, did they make quality engines. But they did reckon sometime after that the best engine would have been to make an engine with Rolls-Royce crankshaft and cylinder head crankshaft, and use Packard
fixings.
Other bits and pieces.
Yeah,
and gearboxes. The two together would have been a perfect engine. Okay, round the back. engine, you know, out in the cold. You've got to have it done for tonight because we're off again tonight.
Yeah, brilliant.
But anyway, this is the second most important person on the plane, of course, the rear gunner, otherwise known as the rear view mirror, because that was his job. His main job was looking for and advising the pilot when to take evasive action from night fighters. Gunnery was his secondary use. Gunnery too soon would simply give away your position by the flare of the guns, so you didn't shoot your guns until he was shooting at you, so you let him shoot first. You used your guns though, you didn't just leave them standing there, because if you left them just standing there, sitting there, you were the first to die. Because the German night fighters would actually pick out Lancasters or Halifaxes with rear turrets and look for, if they got the chance, stationary guns. And on the grounds that that gunner is asleep or he's left his seat and he's not watching, I can kill that plane without any harm to myself. Then I'll have to go for the ones with guns, but I'll prefer to go. So, keep your guns moving. So what do? They use the guns as a tracker. You know, because it's all hydraulically driven, so it's not a lot of weight, like power steering. It's simply, well, we're mainly looking at the bottom half, because the attacks are coming up this way. Because that makes, there's only one pair of eyes going to be able to see you anyway, which is him. So track the guns, down a bit, across, down, simply looking through the sights. So he systematically searches the sky and then does it again. And then keeps the pilot advised and ultimately takes over command of the aircraft. Warns the pilot when he's going to order him to take evasive action and then giving him the order to take evasive action. An instant obedience, no such word as avail, instant obedience from the pilot is required to throw the aeroplane into either a brake or corkscrew. This sort of stuff.
Amazing.
Corkscrews save lives, there's no shadow of doubt about that. And the Lancaster was particularly good at doing it. It is an aerobatic aeroplane. Proven by Alex Henshaw, test pilot at Castle Bromwich, who went on to build Lancasters after Spitfires. He was their chief test pilot. He'd also been a test pilot on Spitfires, but he went to Lancasters, and every Lancaster that he flew, he rolled. Complete barrel roll. And the other pilot said, "Alex, what are you doing? The schedule says we do this, we do that. There's nothing on that says we've got to roll it." He says, "Well, I'm going to roll it." "Why you do it?" He says, "Because," he says, "this aeroplane I've just flown has got to fly through gun-filled, bullet-filled sky and put through some pretty heavy manoeuvres by young men. I'm going to make sure that it holds together." "Well, you can do it," Alex said, "but we ain't going to do it." Lancaster, he flew. He made sure. The word is that our Lancaster, the BBF, rolled when it left Henlow in 1963 to go to Waddington in that sort of business to the CO of Henlow, who didn't like it being there and in fact had said, "Get that rubbish off my airfield." The pilot, who was a Pole, therefore went away, said, "Thank goodness he's gone," did a circuit, came back, flew right over the Henlow College main building, low level, and rolled it all. I'm not at 100%, but I'm 95% sure that's a true story.
He was only saying goodbye.
Oh, I know.
Some just waggled the wings, he just thought he'd do a roll.
No, I heard it from a guy who claimed to have ridden on the plane on that flight, and he said it was like being in a snowstorm. Because nobody had tidied up. When they went over, all everything came, bits of paper and bits of all sorts were fluttering down. Because the clever bit in this rolling business, of course, is the glove trick or the gauntlets trick, where they put a pair of gauntlets on the windscreen ledge, and when you roll, if you get it right on turn with the G, you can actually get those to rise and hover. It takes a very good pilot, very careful, but you can do it on Spitfire as well. If you get the G forces right, combining the G down and the rotational turn, you can actually get the gloves to hover with it. Well, there you go. Believe that, you believe that. No, it's true. I know because I know a pilot who's done it. In fact, he might be in this hangar now. I can't see.
Did you read, did it?
Anyway, if you've got any more... Oh yeah, I was going to tell you Mynarski. Briefly tell you a Mynarski story. 419 Squadron, he was up a gunner and they were going to bomb the railway marshalling yard at Cambrai in Picardy in France. And they were flying only about 2,000 feet, but along comes a German Junkers 88 and hits them from behind, well slightly behind, completely wrecks the left wing, sets it on fire, petrol tanks. Both engines are out and destroyed some hydraulics and electrics in the fuselage. Got to bail out. Pilot gives the order to bail out, which he has to do on the emergency system because the normal one, the intercom's gone in the attack. The emergency system is a simple Morse code where the pilot sends P in Morse code to a light in each position. P being in parachute. I can't tell you a word about it, get out. And that's what they all did. Except the poor rear gunner. He ended up, because of the hydraulic failure, with his turret about 45-ish degrees. Which meant the gap from the door in the turret didn't match the door in the back of the Lancaster by about that much. He could not get out. He used the winding handle, which is an emergency turn of the thing. It's not easy to do. Handle broke.
Oh, Christ.
So he's stuck in a crash, in a doom day. Andrew Mynarski comes down from the turret and comes towards the back to the door, just in front of the thing, and he's just about to bail out, and he glances through the smoke and sees his mate, and they were friends, stuck. So he comes through the smoke, gives up his own escape at the time, tries to force the turret with manpower. Between the two of them they couldn't shift it. He then got the fire hacks and started hacking away trying to get it out, but that was not working either. So this guy, who was a senior to Mynarski, ordered him to leave him. Get yourself saved. Reluctantly he did. He went back to the door, by which time he was on fire because the fire had spread. So his uniform and his parachute were on fire. Stood at the door with a burning thing all around him, turned to this guy, saluted him, and then left him. He lived about 2 hours after hitting the ground because his parachute on fire didn't hold properly, and that was the end of Mynarski. In the meantime, the pilot, last on board, set the plane as best he could for a reducing height, and then bailed out. Oh, set the engines to compensate for the left turn because of the dud engine on one side, but did his best to get a nice thing and then bailed out. And that's what the plane did. It went down nice and slow and landed fairly well, but then ran into a wood, hit a tree, big wing snapped off, airplane swung round, this turret swung right out, he was thrown out and recovered very shortly by French resistance, with his parachute still attached, untouched. The pilot, the flight engineer and the navigator, 3 of them were also picked up by the French resistance, and the 4 of them got back to England. The other 2, the bomb aimer and the radio operator, were captured by the Germans. They became Mynarski died, there's your 7th one. In 1946, the crew got together and pushed for Mynarski to get to a hospital for granted. There's a story. It shows you the luck of the draw. 7 men, 6 survived with terrible problems, and 1 brave bloke. Okay. If we go outside, you can see what's happening. If we go outside, to the left. Right. only a boring old burning engine. Yeah, just